Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Voluntary View. It's me, Jeff, with Voluntaryism In Action. We've got a very special guest. We have Jack V Lloyd, the Voluntaryist. That's right, the Voluntaryist, here with us today. So we're super excited. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you having me here.
Oh, happy to. So I always like to ask people how they came to voluntarism, libertarianism, whatever flavor of liberty philosophy they hold. I feel like most people don't come to it naturally. It's not just something people are born with in our society anyway. So what was that journey like for you?
Sure. So for me, I started off as a neocon. I'd say I was pretty much a neocon through my later teens. And that was kind of just, from upbringing and environment and just, what I've been exposed to. So I don't think I got, I guess you could say, too much political challenging growing up outside of like the mainstream left-right paradigm. And even at that wasn't, very intellectual, I think, in terms of thinking about ethics and philosophy. But when I went to college, there was a class where they were talking about the American eugenics movement. And I hadn't heard about that before. So it caused me to research U.S. history and just look into the American eugenics movement and forcible sterilization of people in America. And then, one thing led to another. I kept, looking down more paths of different government malfeasance and cronyism and things like that. And over time, I started to, develop my love for liberty, much stronger. And I'd say within about, from that point, in about 3 years, I eventually became a full-on voluntarist. And I think that, kind of came down to this one question that was posed to me on a certain website called the No State Project that said, should goods and services be provided at the barrel of a gun? And so that kind of, at least ethically, got me to that landing point of saying, okay, yeah, no matter what, definitely don't think that would be ethical. And so from that standpoint, I was definitely a philosophical voluntarist.
I understand. I like it's so easy to just kind of ignore or not even know about all of the things that the government does if it doesn't affect you personally. I think people can just go along and think, oh, what's wrong with the government? There's no problem. They do X, Y, and Z. That's because they don't see. You have to, like you to go into do the research and find out. And then, oh, there's some bad stuff going on here. And then, and then makes people ask the basic questions that just no one ever thinks about. Is this right from a moral perspective, an ethical perspective? And I think when it's put that way, most people would come to the same conclusion you do, but it doesn't get put that way very often.
Yeah, I'd say most people are usually dealing in the realm of like, policy fantasy. That's what I, typically see, right? Most people are used to being in school like, oh, how would you do this if you got to control the government, or what policies would you write? Very rarely you're going to be encountering people genuinely saying, wait, is this even an ethical solution? Usually the government and force, it's always about, projecting a lust for power and, pushing that on the kids so that by the time they get out and they've been disenfranchised for so long being in compulsory public school, they themselves want a chance at being in that seat of authority instead of living or wanting to live free, I guess you could say. They project their desire to control, to have their shot at having power. So
seeing what they can do in the driver's seat,
right,
instead of just leaving people alone.
Right. Reminds me of Squid Game, actually. That was a part of the series. I'm not sure if you've seen that. It's a very popular. It's a great Netflix show in terms of just the entertainment value. I think there's a lot of occult stuff that's kind of written into it and some leftist critique. But the short of it is that without giving too many spoilers, here or anything like that, is that people who participate in these kind of sick games in the show, some of them go on to participate in it. So it's kind of like this mirroring, and I would say a lot of social spheres in terms of status brainwashing, where it's like you're tormented, and so then you grow up to become the tormentor, like participating in it, like you don't know anything else, and so it becomes acclimated to the use of force and the cycle of abuse with that.
Right. Can't even imagine anything that isn't this way. Like who could possibly provide the roads if the government doesn't?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people talk about a liberty philosophy and such, but it's hard to actually do something about it. It feels like to me. But I think the entertainment route is a good way to go about that. And of course, you've had a hand in that personally with the comic book series, The Voluntarist, which I've got some copies of that myself. Yeah, Voluntarist Origins. So did you do the art and the script for it, or just one or the other?
So I'm the writer producer. So at this point, my main roles is orchestration, writing the story. But as of recent, relative, I would say, last few years, I've taken on lettering. So basically, I came to a point where I'm like, it just makes sense for me to do lettering because I have enough skills to do it in my style and stuff. And so in the beginning, I didn't. I would let somebody else letter, but now I'm just like, I'll do it myself. So outside that, then different artists that come on for different parts, like a primary penciler. Sometimes there's an inker who's separate, and there's a colorist and stuff like that, depending what's going on. But there's several people who normally work together in comics. It's pretty industry standard that you'll have several people in the process, sometimes even multiple writers, but definitely someone who's doing primary pencils, then possibly inker, colorist, and letterer and things like that. So
yeah. Makes sense. It's a lot of work, even for someone who's good at it, to be able to produce something like that.
Yeah.
So forgive my ignorance, letterer, that's when you write the words on the page, right?
Right. The person who designs the text and the bubbles and like kind of like the onomatopoeia, word sounds like foop or, pop or bang, whatever. But yeah, there's, specialties in each one of those arenas. And some people make, careers out of just doing that one specialty.
Oh, excellent. So what gave you the idea, out of all the possible options of, I want to do something, how did a comic series about a superhero voluntarist come to the fore?
Sure. So I was studying for my bar exam after law school, and I was, kind of bored in between studying, like wanted to do something creative just to like change it up from, memorizing a lot of dry rules to do for a test. And so I started coming together with this idea for a movie script for a voluntarist superhero, because I've just always been into comics in some way. I'm not like the biggest comic historian or something like that, but I've always enjoyed like the DC animated series and different superhero movies and a lot of nerddom stuff, Star Wars, whatever, Lord of the Rings. So
fun.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of fun stuff. So I was like, I want to do something that I already kind of like, enjoy, and have fun with. So I started to do that, and then I realized I wouldn't be able to do a movie well. It would, just be too expensive. So like, okay, well, what could I do that like I could reasonably fundraise for and like do on a mainstream competency level? And that's where the comic idea came from, because I was like, oh, okay, actually a comic's way more affordable to do than a decent animation, an animated film or short or a live action movie. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go that route instead. It's a little bit more manageable to do, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. And what about the story idea? You're the guy behind the story.
Yeah.
So did that just, is it evolving as you went along, or do you have it worked out from the beginning?
Yeah, I wrote out like a huge portion of the like origin story like there in a summer, quite a bit, and then over time I refined it over years and like added stuff and did everything other things. So I do have quite a bit of the universe fleshed out in a sense, but I do have a lot of room for like growth and changes over time, or just little adjustments that I think might be better as I go to modify it, which is part of the reason I like doing lettering anyway. I can kind of adjust little things as I go and just make it make more sense, or just just something I like a little bit better. So yeah, I would say that a lot of the story is fleshed out in the behind the scenes, but there's still plenty more for me to actually put in fixed form that is write about the futureverse stuff and like things that happen. So I'd actually just finished the 5th issue of the origin story, so the canon origin arc. So there be
Nice.
Origins 1, all right, Origins 2, yeah, Origins 3.
Yes, that's the last one I have. Okay, good.
Origins 5, which I'm holding. This is unreleased yet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was actually just from the latest campaign. I am still waiting on one final art print that's supposed to come to me for backers as a bonus art print. So I'm waiting for my artist to finish the colors on that. So they're almost done, and then I got to print that and ship back to me, and then I can finally send everyone their perk packages that has the comic and whatever else they get on it.
Nice.
So
excellent. Yeah. I'm sad to say that I've missed every single backer event. I've had to buy them all after the fact.
Oh, it's all good.
That's why I'm only at 3 now. You say 5 is going to be released soon.
Well, Yeah, it should like it's out digitally on Kindle, but I actually
Yeah.
submitted it to what's called Any Planet, where you got yours,
Yep.
and they're just backlogged with everything. They've had a lot of crazy stuff, as you know, with all the shipments for supplies around the world being cut
Hmm.
off, thanks to government policy.
Yes.
They were behind in a lot of stuff. So I'm still waiting for them to post it, but it's fine because I still haven't shipped the physical ones to backers yet. So I like, giving them a little bit of time, a little bit of preview before that comes out. But yeah, I mean, even just issue 3 and 4, I just did a remastering on those. Like I relettered them myself. So I'm not sure when you got your 3, but I now have, and if you ordered from Indie Planet, it would be a remastered version with like
Nice.
kind of a different lettering style. So I just
Okay.
updated it, made it a little bit better. I'm not sure when you got yours, but there's a lot of cool stuff in the remaster, and just make it a little bit neater and exposing a little bit more of the artwork behind. So
Nice. Good. I got mine a while ago, so
yeah.
I have to get a newer version. That was why I was gonna get 4, but
Mhm.
then I found out, oh man, 5 is coming out soon too. So I decided to hold off on that. So get them both together, save on shipping.
Ah,
So
very smart.
yeah. But
Yeah.
then 6 is gonna be the final, like, wind up this origin series, right?
Right. So Origin 6 is the last issue in that Origins arc. So how I've titled it, basically the kind of coming of, the character story, developing the background and the backdrop to the major characters, that we're following. Of course, there'll be more later, but just really the core characters that really drive the narrative. And next year we'll be funding for that for Origin 6. And I'm going to also be at the same time, fingers crossed everything works out. I'm going to remaster Origins 1 and 2. So basically they're going to be redrawn with the artists that I've used the last several issues, so that they all will have continuity. And I'm going to letter those 2 again myself. And when it's done, all the Origins issues will have the same art, same lettering, and I'm going to take them all and put them into a trade paperback. So basically, trade paperbacks are like a book compilation of a comic book, series of a certain, range of issues for a certain topic or whatever arc. So I'm going to be
Yes.
doing all that. So 2022 is going to be really big for Voluntaryist, because that's going to put everything together into the compiled Origins arc series with, like, a new book that is a new compilation book with a new redesigned art cover, and all the other good stuff that comes with the Origin
Nice.
6 issue. So
Good. Is that gonna be part of the backer event? Because I want to jump on this one.
yes, that one will be a part of that. So all that together is going to be in there. So I'm going big. I've been doing this for almost 10 years. So it'll be like a 10-year anniversary kind of thing at the same time. So I'm going to ask everybody, who's been a long time supporter, and I've had a lot of people who've believed in me since the beginning. So I'm really thankful to them, because I've definitely have made mistakes, or didn't do things exactly as I wanted, and had to correct some things. So I'm very thankful to people who believed in me and allowed me to learn the first couple of preliminary issues, and fix things, and keep getting better. Because now it's like really good. Now I'm like very proud of everything. But I had a learning curve in the first few issues of just figuring out what's the best way to accomplish getting the comic book done.
Yeah.
But now I'm very well seasoned and know how to get stuff looking real nice. So
Nice. Yeah,
yeah.
I felt that before. When you're just starting out, you just want to get something done and not worry about it being perfect, because then it's never going to get done if it's the first thing. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
So I wasn't.
understand.
Yeah, in that case too, like it would have been harder for me to have figured it out at the time on my own. There was some guides, to comic book making back then, but it's not the same level as there is now. I'm sure, as you've seen on YouTube. Like now, you can really get tutorials for all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? But even back
Mhm.
then, this was still kind of a niche thing of like, ooh, independent comics, but like totally independent, not like you go through Image, like just like a company where it's like creator owned. This is like, oh, you got to do it yourself, start from scratch. So I was definitely one of those ones who kind of like paved the way early with a lot of people who started doing self-funded comic books. It was a thing that I kind of like, a cultural thing that I was definitely a part of. Like if you go on Indiegogo, where I fundraise, or Kickstarter, a lot of those things were like just starting around that time, like getting notoriety. So I was a part of this, kind of first group of people using this means to actually create comic books totally independent of even like the smaller creator-owned independent labels.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Now, what have the sales been like? Of
Yeah.
course, it's great to put this out, but how many
Mhm.
people are really interested in purchasing it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, in the thousands. So I have like a pretty strong fan base for such a niche thing.
Mhm.
I definitely don't compare myself to like any mainstream publisher or anything like that. I'm not like sitting there and saying, oh yeah, I have Diamond distributing to like every comic book store. No.
Well, they've got the advertising and all of that, so
Yeah. in terms of my own success, I feel very successful just because we've, basically done over 100% funding on like the last several campaigns, like the last 4 or 5 campaigns around. We've, gone over 100% of funding, and just have had, an increasing growing fan base even after, people who buy it through Indie Planet. So it's just encouraging to see that it went from something that was very niche and small to like it started to go past Liberty Crowd people, and I saw people outside of that buying it, out of an interest of just having something that's different from the mainstream, because the comic is definitely different in that way. If you're used to just seeing the same old tropes and your DC or Marvel genre of comics, this is not like that. And you know what I mean, in terms of the topic and the conversation, it's much higher level, more intriguing when it comes to the underlying philosophy being discussed. But it still runs like a story. It's not preachy or anything like that. It's just it's something where the government's not by default seen as good. So
And I like it because you mentioned differences from the standard comic book tropes. There's not a bad guy, like who is the bad guy, who's the nemesis of the good guy. It's more complicated than that.
Definitely.
And you mentioned earlier, having things planned out as far as the story goes. And that's a good thing, being able to foresee what's coming. But you went to another level on the cover of the second issue, as someone pointed out on Twitter the other day. I'm gonna hold it up so everyone can see. So for those of you who are just listening, the cover has the hero, Jack Lloyd, tied up with the American flag and gagged with it too, with a gun to his head, and they're threatening him with an injection.
Right.
So, and this was released like 5 or 6 years ago, but if that isn't 2021 to a T,
right.
dang. That is some foresight right there. That is cool.
I would say the comic series and a bunch of stuff I do has a lot of prescient elements to it, foreshadowing of things that are, very real world, as you could say. And you could say, I think anybody who reads it would be pleasantly surprised to see all the different themes and Easter eggs that are in there, and actually may even see things that cause them to be like, wait, what? And then like go Google some things and, wake up to some
like Easter eggs and such.
Yeah. So, because even before the Origin series, I did a few like Futureverse prototypes and stuff like that. Like there's a State of Zombies, there's the NSA 1 and 2 and stuff like that. So, there's some other stuff there too, but I try to throw it in wherever I can. Anything that helps people see what's going on with the world and government control. So
nice. So speaking of what's going on with the world and government control, of course, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening right now with the coronavirus and the government's restrictions and vaccine passports and mandates. And you and the philosopher, that I had my wife corrected me for a while before I got it right. I used to call her the philosopher.
Yeah.
But it's the philosopher.
Right.
Exactly. You guys just released a music video called Disobey. Yeah. So tell us about that. Is that music video obviously a big project, like you said, not quite a movie, but there's a lot that goes into it. So how did that come about?
Well, it started with the bat. No, it started with our wanting to do a sequel to Mask Order. So the first music video we did last year, Mask Order, which is like, I don't know, something over 100,000 plus views on YouTube alone, like that was taking on obviously the mask and pass and shutdown, mandates and things like that. And we just wanted to reemphasize with even more culture tie-ins how bad the government's malfeasances and how bad their acts are, with all the different ways that they've been trying to manipulate people in the economy and the like. So we decided that, all right, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and fundraise for this and go ahead and make this sequel, because now is really the time, with all the pushes that especially Joe Biden and his administration have been putting out there. It's really important for people to feel this culture of disobedience and non-compliance more than ever. So we did it. We got successfully funded. We worked together to set up all the different things we're going to do with the shots and the props, and getting together actors, because there was a lot of people for this. There was like, I think something like
they had a lot of extras.
Yes, we had a lot of different extras and, secondary casts and stuff like that, lots of props. So we just planned it as fast as we could within a couple months, and then shot it across 3 different weekends, and then just released it. And it's doing okay so far. I mean, you do face a lot of throttling and censorship. It definitely is nowhere
Oh,
where
yeah.
it used to be. We get tons of people telling us YouTube didn't even send them a notification, and they're like subscribed and get notifications, on our channel. They didn't even send them a notification for the videos.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing where, of course, they wouldn't, because they don't want people to think in those kind of ways. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of censorship of independent creators ever since the major corporations, that is the cable news networks, like bought over YouTube and are now controlling things there. So it's
Mhm.
not the same. But we do use every element that we can on every platform we can, and share on all different types of, blogs and other websites and other social medias. And so it's making its way up. I think it's something over 4,000 views already. So we're just going to keep pushing it in all different ways we can, and grow it just like we did the last one. So we'll see where it goes.
Nice, nice. I think it's the message is one I think that can't be overemphasized. It's the Thoreau. He said that disobedience is the true foundation of liberty, and that the obedient must be slaves. And of course, he's not saying that you have to go and do the opposite of whatever you're told, and
Mhm.
that's what makes you free. But it's
Right.
being able to say, no, I will not do this thing.
Mhm.
That's what makes you free. And if you are just always doing whatever you're told, what are you
Mhm.
but a slave without the ability to disobey
Right.
when you want to?
Yeah,
Hmm. So definitely a message that needs to get out there, I think.
I
But
agree.
yeah, so thank you for making that video.
Oh, of course, it's fun.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
But so speaking of that, with all of the things that are going on, what do you think is the way forward for the liberty movement when faced with mandates and executive orders and all of this nonsense?
Mhm.
What is the way forward for actually pushing liberty?
Sure. So I mean, to me, it should always just be decentralized, and that is that it's, people choosing to apply themselves where and how they see best based on their own individual skills, talents, and interests. But in terms of like what the actual, I think, ramifications or ripple effects are, is I think that, none of these, I guess you could say, mandates and tyrannies are happening in a vacuum, right? When there's this force being put on people, there's going to be consequences. There's going to be a reaction. And with that reaction, what we encourage people to do is to, as you just said before, disobey, to not comply, and to put themselves in a position where they are funding those who also agree with those sentiments. So I think that, to the best extent possible, people should use their resources to support those who are not in alignment with this nonsense. And that could be as small as choosing where you do grocery shopping, to maybe a retailer that isn't as compliant, or doesn't enforce these mandates. It could be, just choosing to get whatever services that you normally would get with someone who doesn't tell you must wear a mask in order to come inside to their business. I think that actually even happened with my wife recently. She was, going to a wax place, and they started to do a bunch of tyrannical stuff with wanting to demand all this mask stuff. So she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take my business to another place that doesn't require that. And that was it. She went to another place, had a great time. And wow, she just gave money to people who are not going to go along with the tyranny. And just like that, you are taking money out of the hands of people who will obey, and give it to people who see through the veil of the government tyranny, and are willing to disobey and just not go along with it and live life. So I think that's to me one of the biggest things, is choosing consciously, with your resources, time, and where you choose to spend, to support those who are disobeying, or who are just not enforcing. And then on top of that, I think, spreading the message as well as you can to others for that culture of disobedience is very important. I think the cultural element is something that does influence those who have political power, in terms of politicians and things like that. And so if they start to see that the political winds are turning against them, you know, as always, there's incentives there, human action incentives. They want to win
Mhm.
their reelection. They want to be viewed as favorable, and to, get support. So if they see that people are turning against us, they're going to at least relinquish to some degree, depending on how proximate, you can get that culture to change. And I think that's been evidenced in quite a few places already, with certain governors choosing not to lock down or choosing to nullify federal mandates or other types of things. So I think that is kind of the cultural backdrop that's necessary as a predicate to pushing back against the tyranny. Is you need people who are being supported in their choice to not comply with and to disobey these mandates. And for some people that's extra tough because they've had to choose to no longer work at a company or to be fired. And I think those people are heroic. Anybody who is doing that, who is forcing the hand and saying, okay, you're gonna have to fire me because I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to go along with your stupid mask or shot mandates, whatever. I think those people are some of the greatest heroes because they're standing up for important values of bodily autonomy and their property rights. So, just supporting those people, whatever, is possible, whether it's helping them find new work or helping them get by just until they find something new, I think is important too. So, there's all kinds of ways that people can help out and push the culture toward liberty and a culture of disobedience.
Great thoughts. I'm curious, what do you think about governors and politicians going the opposite way, saying that you or businesses can't require masks or can't have any kind of vaccine passports, kind of using the government power in the opposite way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that from an ethical standpoint, I don't think the government should be doing that either. I don't think that's the solution. I think if there is a state level solution in terms of like what is mirroring potential market issues, I think a default of having businesses be liable for what they mandate, I think should be the norm. And that means that if they mandate a shot and you get injured, you should be able to sue the business unless you contractually agree to otherwise. I think that would be the case in any other situation where the business, let's just say you're working in a company and they give you a truck to drive, whatever, deliver goods, and the truck is faulty and you crash, right? You'd sue the business for giving the faulty truck for, giving you something that they said is safe and effective, right? If they said, oh no, drive this car, it's safe and effective, you crash, obviously you would sue the employer, right? The same thing should be the case with companies saying, oh, no, it's safe and effective, just take this. They should be held liable. And I think that if they wanted to get out of that, it should be specific contract. They should have to say, no, we won't be held liable if you take this, but you have to take it. Well, then at least they're putting the cards on the table, and then every single business would be exposed for the lie, right? That's what I would like to see is the more that people have to face this firsthand, that's where to me, the culture change starts. So that to me would be the state level, like ethical legal change that could be better. But obviously, all these businesses are not doing these things, in a vacuum either. With the state law, it's stemming from the federal mandates by and large, and what's the Biden administration is trying to do to manipulate different regulatory agencies and try to see which way they can like get these passed through to make them stick. So, it's a tough situation. Absolutely. I just think that there could be better ways of dealing with it in terms of legal liability that could also, in a closer to market sense, incentivize people, that is the business owners, to not enforce those, to make them voluntary, not mandatory. So,
right. That's a good idea. But then that's going back to what we talked about at the beginning. People are trained to just try to use this power when they have it, and not to let it go, but to try to amass more and more. And of course, that's the tendencies of power all the time. So it's difficult, and it has to stem, like you said, from the culture, which is created by things like comics and music, which is why I think some of the stuff that you've been doing has been so great.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I do all kinds of stuff, when it comes to liberty stuff. I got music, skits, comics, educational bits that produce, all kinds of different things, memes, speaking stuff, and the like. So we just recently had a lot of fun too at Tom Woods 2000. They opened up with our Tom Woods House music video, so that was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. It's something that's just a reminder that liberty doesn't just have to be like boring economics papers and stuff like that. Like, you can have fun while doing liberty stuff. You can do business. You can be a comic or a comedian. You can do all kinds of creative things. It's not just reading about dry history or dry economics lessons or something like that.
Yeah, I think Jeff Smith has graded that too, because there's so much ridiculous stuff that the government does that people just don't even think about. But when it's pointed out, then they can laugh about it because it is ridiculous. And hopefully some of them can also think, wow, that's really ridiculous. Like really ridiculous, but they're doing that all the time. And people can start thinking instead of just accepting everything.
Right. I mean, pointing out what the government does with, I think as Rothbard said, irreverency, I think is important. Just mocking the nature of the state, mocking politicians. I mean, they need to be laughed at as if they're just clowns, because that's what it is. They are nothing more than a fictional orchestration of, like, boogeymen basically saying, "Oh, yes, we're special, we're important. You need to worship us. You need to give us your money, and we're legitimate." I mean, when you just look at it for what it is a clown show.
Yeah.
And they need to be mocked for that. They need to be laughed at, ridiculed, shown that they're hypocrites, shown that they're evil, and in some cases, outright exposed for some of the more sinister things that they've done, as you've seen with the Epstein case and what's going on with Maxwell. We'll see what happens there, but if she survives this whole thing and actually talks about everything, it's gonna be pretty wild. So
Yeah.
the name dropping that she might do to save her skin, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think what you were thinking about, like the aura around the state, I think Rothbard called it something like the mystical veil of sovereignty that the state wraps itself in that allows it to get away with so much. And they do so much to maintain that. I'm thinking specifically of the stuff on January 6th, whether it was a false flag or not, like they let people in, I don't know. But like this mythology that they've woven about it to try to make themselves seem like these valiant martyrs against the forces of chaos, trying to destroy the nation. It's just the amount of buy-in that they're trying to get from people. It seems so desperate to me, but they depend on that so much because without it, what are they? They're just some people who with guns who keep taking money. And they know, I think they know, that when people realize that, then the game is up. And so they're doing everything they can to try to maintain that illusion.
Yeah, exactly. Because the state is just a psychological construct. It's not a physical form. It's just people acting with a certain belief and other people acting with that belief, in authority. And so the second that dissipates, that people start saying no, they break the psychological chains, then it dissipates, as many governments have in the past. Not every government has lasted forever. The psychological chains have dissipated in the past before for different regimes or different rulers. So it's not that it's impossible. It can be done. Getting to that point can be difficult when you have a government that has so much money and resources to be able to brainwash the next generation and indoctrinate and distract, all the time. So it's a very difficult process for sure.
Absolutely. But the small steps add up after a while, whether it's homeschooling your kids or going to a different store or producing a comic, making a song, whatever. It adds up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've been around long enough, at least doing this liberty stuff, to have a good benchmark to know that, this stuff with taxation being theft is a normal cultural thing. And, all this recognition of libertarians and ANCAPs in the mainstream media even, just didn't exist at this level 10, 15 years ago. So it's pretty cool to see it hit this level of acceptance in this cultural Overton window shift. I'm pretty excited about it myself. I haven't been working on it for all these years, but there's still plenty more to go for sure.
Yeah, true. But we just got to keep working on it, whether it's through putting out comics or running charity fundraisers like we do. The more people hear about it, more people are going to think about it. But if they never see it, never hear about it, they can't think about it.
Right. It can be tough to imagine something that, you haven't seen or heard of before. Very few people are able to have that level of innovative thinking, especially with all the destruction of creative thinking in public schools. So
yeah, and that's nothing against them. It's just human nature, especially when it's been pointed that way by the people in charge. Well, thanks though very much, Jack, for coming on the show. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything, for example, where we can watch the video, where we can purchase the comics? You mentioned
Sure.
Indiegogo, right?
Yeah, well, the Indiegogos are seasonal, so they come up for a certain couple months when we do the fundraiser. But if you want to check out the comic book series and get any past issues, all the links to there for Indie Planet are on volcomic.com. That's B as in victory, VOL, Vol Comic, COMIC. So volcomic.com. And there's, a bit of the history there, characters and other stuff. And on the sidebar, you can see links to physical and digital issues. And then when it comes to anything I'm doing with the philosopher for music or otherwise, you can check out thephilosopher.com, and that's PHOLO, not with the I or not with the A, but it's pronounced pho, like the Vietnamese dish pho. So the pho, PHO, philosopher, LOSOPHER, philosopher.com. Also youtube.com/the philosopher. That's another way you can connect with some of our work and music and things like that. So yeah, you'll be able to check out a lot of our stuff, or at least, springboard from there to the other projects that we do. And we do a lot of different things. So it'd be hard to summarize all in a short bit.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to link to those or put those links in the description of the video so that everyone can get to those really quick just with a click. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Jack. It's been great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to 4, 5, and 6 of the comics. That's going to be great. I got to see how it ends. Does he get his parents back? I don't know, but I want him to. So I'm going to find out.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. So, and keep the good work with Voluntaryism In Action. So,
thank you very much. We will. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and go over to our website where you can offer donations, request help us help people who are in need voluntarily. And we'll see you next time.